Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby BABB. Today I'm joined by not one but two of Vela's finest. It is Mr. Rob Lane and Ollie Cadman. How are you, gents?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
Yeah, very good, thanks.
Really good to have you both on here today. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know too much about Vela and about Rob and Ollie, do you want to introduce yourselves, guys?
Yeah, hi, I'm Rob Lane. As Toby mentioned, I look after sales for Europe and APAC. Been with the company 4 years plus. Again, enjoying the changes that we're seeing at the moment.
And Ollie Cadman, so I'm Vela's Chief Product Officer, also based in London. Work very closely with Rob. And for those of you that, I guess just to give a little bit of an overview on Vela, we're a provider of market data and execution technology. We cover all of the market data aspects in terms of feed, sourcing, normalization, distribution, control and entitlements. And similarly on the execution side, normalized order entry, pre-trade risk, drop copy, etc. And then over the top of that, we overlay a number of trading capabilities and functionalities through our options on futures trading platform Metro. So we really play across the full front office spectrum of market access and connectivity, providing a layer of software or more and more, and I think we'll probably talk about this more and more, providing that as a service for clients looking to access and connect to liquidity globally.
Fantastic. It's been a sort of really good time over the last few years for Vela. How has everything been through all of this? Have you been managing your clients and managing your customers and sorting everything out?
I guess it's been like everyone else. It's been ups and downs. There's been highs and lows, but I guess we've adapted quite quickly. Like everyone has in their personal life and in work life, communication, I guess, has gone from meeting people face to face to doing a lot of these kind of things on video, whether that be Zoom or kind of the Teams, etc. I think people have adapted very well and accepted it on that side. It's clients have been very reactive as well. So again, they've been up and running. I think we were talking to one large tier one banks that kind of rolled out thousands of kind of team accesses in a weekend. So again, it's kind of helped that communication level. Everything was kind of moving that way anyway, wasn't it? Everything was kind of more mobile. Everyone was online all the time. So I guess nothing particularly. From that point of view, we've just had to adapt and change. I guess the other thing, we had to get used to making sure that we're kind of keeping the same level of kind of service and kind of communication as we would do if we were in the office, etc. Which again has its ups and downs, but I think as time's gone on, it's become easier and easier on that side. I'd say that obviously drawing that line, isn't it, really, from work and personal life when you're at home. And again, it's been something that people have adapted to, and we've seen it within our team, we've seen it with our clients. It's just trying to kind of draw a line between work and personal life is that a little bit of a tough thing on that side.
And what's been some of the learns from that? I mean, as you go through that and clients become, as you say, it's sort of got easier as it's gone through. What have been some of the sort of takeaways and things you guys have done successfully on it?
I think for me, the biggest thing, and it sounds a bit contradictory, but the biggest thing is actually trying to encourage our staff, particularly, is to take time off as opposed to trying to juggle the two together. So we've definitely seen a case of try and take your holiday as much as there's not a lot to do externally. But I think that's been a real positive, because I think people have taken a couple of days off, come back fresher, and actually just to take a step away has really helped them mentally. And again, talking to our clients, I think they've been doing the same. To be brutally honest, I got the idea of pushing for holiday, taking a day off from our clients, where they were kind of really trying to encourage people to take 1 or 2 days off, break away, come back. Because again, it's been hard. I think it would be lying if we kind of said it wasn't easy, this change on that side. So that's been the biggest thing on that side. The second thing, I'll be honest, one of the biggest positives I think we've seen is how the industry, our industry, capital markets, has carried on going. I think it's a lot of industries really struggle, whether it be the tourism and that side, but I guess capital markets is continuing to move on, and we are again, being a global company, things have changed at different times. So if you're talking to Asia, obviously they went through it at a different phase and still are, to Europe and North America, again, slightly differently. So they're the kind of things that I've seen and changes.
And Ollie, what about yourself? There's obviously taking on that sort of product side. You're seeing a lot from the market and the industry as well. How have you adapted on that front?
Yeah, I think to Rob's point, we've, from a technical level, I think it was very straightforward for us to sort of switch to more of a remote operational model. We did, we took the same steps as everyone else did initially. We enhanced our change control processes and put some freezes and controls in place just whilst we bedded down. But part of what we do is we run client systems, we run managed systems, and a lot of that is done as remotely anyway into client environments. And as part of that, as part of our BCP processes and everything else, we have to make sure that we have that access. So it was a relatively easy overnight switch for us, I think, from a technical perspective, for VPN access, remote access and everything else. And, that's something we test regularly anyway to make sure we have capacity. I think to Rob's point, it's then that the operational model that you overlay on that to make sure that you have the same level of productivity, same level of engagement. For me, I think this is one I've learned, doing more of this, doing more video, actually. It's certainly something we've been encouraging people, particularly over the last sort of few weeks. I think as people get more comfortable with that working from home setup, and obviously as it's become clear, it's not just for a few weeks, it's probably for a few months and maybe even, shifts more long term. But I think we've certainly got used to that. From a product perspective, I think it's interesting because, when you think about, we've seen some of the highest volumes and driven by volatility in the markets that we've seen since the financial crisis, and we've probably seen higher volumes than we've seen since the financial crisis. Yeah. What I think has shifted is that provision for that capacity, that responsibility for being able to process those volumes and everything actually sits much more on firms such as Vela than it probably did 10 to 11 years ago. And that's really through that growth of managed services and adoption of private, public cloud, etc. That from a client subscribing to a service, it's the provider's responsibility now to make sure there is sufficient capacity, to make sure that you're doing the right capacity planning and throughput, etc., to be able to handle those types of spikes. Yes, there was stuff done. I mean, I think some of the stuff that was done regulatory wise out the back of that, with MiFID II around capacity planning with the circuit breakers in the US that sort of helped as well, meant that things were much more orderly, I think, as we went through what is a very unique pandemic. So the levers that were implemented, to me, I believe worked in the way they were meant to. But for us, yeah, it's very quickly making sure that we continue. We always plan for two times capacity, etc. From the highest ever peak. We were seeing 2.5, 3 times sometimes on Opera and stuff like that. But we were very, one thing I think we're very proud of team-wise is that we're very quickly able to, jump on that, provision the extra hardware, make sure we have the sufficient capacity, and keep those services running. And then overlay on that, you've got exchanges still making their changes, doing their upgrades, which we're obviously still having to stay on top of, work with clients on. We're going through a particularly busy season of that at the moment. The stuff that was due to happen in March, April really got pushed back, so we've got a big spike in terms of exchange upgrades happening at the moment. I think it's like 32 happening in across exchanges this month, which obviously translates to more than once a day. So that's, as I say, that's much more our problem than it perhaps it was historically with clients, and I think making sure that goes smoothly is something that we're pretty pleased with, I think, and very focused on, obviously, as we continue to go through this process.
Yeah, I think that's a really, everything here is completely unprecedented, and we're dealing with things that you have to sort of deal with pace and scale that you've never had at any other sort of time, and you guys doing that to support that's been great. You mentioned there's the unknown was probably a feature of what you were just talking about there. With regards to pipelining and stuff, Rob, I know you're looking after the sales side of things. That's going to be quite difficult, right? And whilst I think we've seen a robust response from the capital markets, in the capital markets space, I'm interested to hear, how you've been navigating that.
It's been an interesting one, because I guess if you had asked me when this all started 3 months ago, well, maybe 3 or 4 weeks into when all this started, it'd been a very different answer. But I guess if I look at it now, what's been interesting is people willing to talk. It's easier, weirdly enough, to be able to, majority of the time, actually get hold of people and talk to people, a bit more of a kind of conversational, strategic kind of conversation than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be very hard to get hold of people. I thought it'd be very difficult to have these conversations. But I'm pleased to say, certainly from a selfish point of view, that that's not been the case. People have been more engaged, probably if they had been in the office. Because again, there's a little bit of flexibility, a little bit more time, maybe a little bit more effort. I think people from both sides. I think people have been willing to join calls and videos to try and break the kind of monotonous kind of day to day. So we've actually found finding out new conversations or more strategic conversations. That's a bit easier than I thought on that side. Pipeline general building, it's tough. It's like anything else. It's a numbers game. So again, it's just having those conversations and feeding out. But like I said, I think we found that people have been more receptive to conversation than I thought. And again, I've been very pleased with the sales momentum that we've had. I think we've had a very good year first quarter. I have to admit, I was a bit worried about when this all started, whether it would slow down in particularly April, May, and June. But I think June's going to be another good month. April was very good indeed for us. So the momentum's carried on. Whether you're able to kind of put it on one thing, I think is tough. To be honest, it's coming from different areas and different groups at different times. But people are willing to look at still change. To Ollie's point, they're looking for help. They're looking for assistance. And I guess one thing we're able to do is have a continuous kind of managing clients, EDCs or exchange data changes, the volumes, and I think work it out quite quickly to what we do. So it's been the momentum's been there. It's been helpful, but it's hard work. Again, it's when you've got salespeople that are naturally, certainly from our side, salespeople and account managers that are naturally outgoing and talking to people. It takes a while for them to adjust to this kind of communication. But again, I'm glad to say that people change it, and it's not just us. I know other colleagues and that we've had from other vendors are exactly the same. But certainly from Vela, I'm very pleased with the communication and. We're able to keep that momentum going. So fingers crossed that carries on.
Yeah, I think that there's another part of it is that you guys have got a team there that I know has been developed and sort of put together that knows and trusts each other pretty well, right? And that's a massive part of it. There's not every vendor in the markets who are thriving at the moment. I think it's really sort of sorted out those teams who have got that sort of trust and support and ability to communicate, because when you have that team that sort of work together, I think that's been really important. Tell us a little bit about how that's functioning.
Definitely. I think one of the biggest things we did straight away was basically having a day-to-day check-in. It sounds really obvious, but having that day-to-day check-in where everyone joins, and it's evolved. Where it's evolved from like a check-in in the morning to lunch times to video to on that side. But absolutely, like you say, just trusting and talking. And weirdly enough, we set it up not necessarily for work related, or kind of our own personal kind of mindset, just to make sure we had that kind of communication with someone else outside of your house whilst you're isolating. And it's evolved on there. I think everyone appreciated it. And actually relationships are built through that a little bit more on that side. So yeah, we definitely carried on those check-in calls every day. I think people kind of appreciate them, not just from a work, but breakout. I think also just trying to be a bit more relaxed with people's personal situations, with schooling or kind of elderly parent, whatever it may be your situation, just kind of understand that a little bit. If one of the children runs in, or not a problem. And again, I think everyone kind of actually enjoyed that and felt more relaxed, which then keeps that momentum and trust to your point. So yeah, really started that early on, carries on 3 months on, was carrying it on that side, if not evolving it. We even had an offsite, didn't we? I think we had about a month and a half ago.
Yep.
We were meant to do an offsite for the London office, and again, obviously we couldn't do that face to face, so we did it on video. And again, it was great because it was probably actually more constructive, got more kind of communication out of it. It was good. So really weirdly, nothing's changed from that side. Taking time to adapt. So again, working with clients, working out how they best kind of work. Some of them like videos, some of them like calls, some of them like emails. That's fine. That's just nothing's changed there. And then obviously internally, just basically building that team tighter and tighter. I think tonight we've got similar to the way Toby, but I think tonight we've got a 4:30 call where we've got drinks. We've got somebody's got a 5-year anniversary, so we'll have some drinks and again hopefully have a bit of a giggle. But on that side, so, yeah, it's important, especially this time.
I agree with that. And Ollie, look, you're sort of a long-term Vela man there as well. Tell us a little bit about how you sort of kept everyone motivated, because it is, as Rob says there. Look, it's an important part. It is a difficult situation with so many moving parts and so many people in so many different situations. I know you guys have kept that sort of camaraderie up there. But tell us a little bit about working from home and how you found it. Tell us a bit about keeping the morale in the team and how you've really sort of managed that side too.
Yeah, no, I think I always say, I've said it to my team, if you told me 6 months ago I'll be working from home full time, I would have said no, I'd hate it. But actually, I personally have got into quite a nice routine. I quite enjoy it. Obviously, I'm not missing with commuting, but generally, I find that the routine works. And I think one of the key things we did, to Rob's point around communication, is really just start sharing more information with the teams around, do's and don'ts on that, guidelines for things like working from home, making sure that the relevant teams have got those additional checkpoints in. We now do, twice a week, we do like a stand up with the whole sales engineering team, a virtual one, and the product team, just to go through, who needs what and why, and outside of all of the relevant team check-ins, etc. And then I think what's important, to Rob's point there as well, is just overlaying some of the fun pieces on that as well. So, we've done global quizzes and team quizzes, etc., and just have other social ways for people to engage. Because I think that is the challenge in this type of environment, is you're only engaging with people when you have a specific question or something to answer. And what you can lose is that sort of more colloquial chat. And out of some of those chats come some great ideas, or come some, meaningful requirements or needs or something. And what we don't want to lose is, we don't want to lose that piece of it. And, we are a global company anyway. And, we work, obviously in London, we work very closely with our colleagues in Belfast, as well as New York and Manila. And so we have some of that structure anyway across the global offices. And I think it's just making sure that we have the same at a local level as well. I'd say we're still learning, I think, on this stuff, but I think you're always learning on these types of things. But if in doubt, I think over communicate and at this point, I'm not worried about over putting too much overhead on people in terms of additional check-ins and everything else. I think the more the better at the moment, and we'll find as things continue, you just continue to tweak and find the right operating rhythm.
It's a really interesting point you make there about the international side of it. And I've sort of spoken to companies who've seen a sort of improvement from east to west across it. You talk about Manila, and I was speaking to people out in that part of the world earlier on in this week, and it seems to be a lot more business as usual. With regards to having an international team that is literally based on all corners of the world, how are you finding that?
It comes with its own challenges, because I think depending on, obviously some part of this all depends on people's home setups. It depends on the quality of their internet. It depends on, certainly for some of our production teams that, would normally have 3 or 4 monitors that are monitoring multiple production systems and everything. It does require a bit of a different way of working, and it provides a slightly different way of engaging. And, you still have to be mindful of time zones and everything else. But, I think for most of our teams that work across those zones, we already had, we do a follow the sun model. So we already have 2 handovers a day where, in the morning and, take the EMEA shift, for example, it would be the morning and the evening where they're handing over between the relevant regions, etc. So actually a lot of that is probably BAU and just continues. I think, again, what we'll probably learn from that going forward is there's no reason why you can't put your camera on during some of those handovers and actually see each other, rather than just talk to each other. And every now and again we might do a video based kind of call between, like a town hall or something, between the different regions. I think there'll be more of that going forwards as we're more comfortable. So I think internationally, I think we'll see an improvement in terms of some of those engagements. And there's no reason why we can't run a virtual quiz with Manila when there isn't a pandemic, not just not just when there is one. And I think that's some of the things that we'll take away from this, definitely.
Who's winning the quizzes?
Not me. that's certainly a fact. In fact, I've been on three different teams. There's a theme, and I think it's related to what team I'm on as to who loses. But they've been good fun, to be fair.
We're going through
maybe a little bit of competitive, brings out a bit of competitive nature in some people, but generally good.
I presume you're looking at Rob Lane when you're saying that. Listen, there's an interesting theme also developing in the markets at the moment about the sort of volatility suiting the exchanges, and we've seen a lot happening in the exchange space from a recruitment perspective on our side. But I know there's also been a lot happening, in terms of the day job. Tell us a little bit about what's happening, what you're seeing there, and give us a few predictions for how you think this plays out.
I remember being at the London Stock Exchange during the 2008-2009, 2007-2008 crisis, and when you're a volume-driven business, then yes, volatility can be a good thing. And we were having record days in terms of volumes, and unfortunately those record days were driven by things such as Lehman's collapsing and stuff like that. It's what comes after that. It's what comes after the volatility that I think has the longer term impacts in terms of. Now this is a very different situation where this isn't a macro structural market event that's shifting the way in which liquidity is being provided, funded, or valued. This is an enforced shutdown by the government and very much sits more in the retail and tourism space. So, how obviously we're in a unique situation and none of us know how quickly things are going to bounce back, and hopefully very quickly. At the moment, I think we're looking at it week to week, month to month, rather than longer term in that sense. And what, I use the term internally, I think, to Rob's point around sales, etc. We're cautiously optimistic around what that means. I think, we are always very customer led, and, the projects and the roadmaps that we, set out at the beginning of this year, no doubt will have to be shifted going into the second half of the year, because I've no doubt that some of our clients' priorities have changed going through this, whether that be because they've learned things about their systems, their operations, their business that means that they need to shift. I certainly think one of the areas we're seeing an acceleration is around discussions around cloud and cloud environments and things like that. And I think, what was maybe a bit more of a vision or intention has become much more of a plan and a project now around some of those cloud related moves, because firms have just maybe been forced to almost move quickly there and adopt it perhaps a bit quicker than anything else. So I think we'll see a lot more talk about that in the next 3 to 6 months. And I'll go back to the managed service and the managed service and the services piece in general, which is, I think, again, it really brings clients to sort of question where their key differentiators and where their bread and butter sits versus what is, slightly commoditized or plumbing, and what caused them the problems and where they need to focus. And I imagine we'll continue to see some more shift into the managed service and as a service space going into the second half of the year.
And Rob, there's an awful lot of value that I think a company like Vela can provide at a time like this. Tell us a little bit about who should be getting in touch with you and how you're adding value to the marketplace right now.
Anyone who wants market data or execution, please just feel free. I guess seriously, to Ollie's point, we've seen a trend for the last couple of years on things going from software to more managed service. So we've seen that happening, and again, that's really been our kind of one of our USPs over the last couple of years. But again, that's been accelerated. So we've seen that from the sell side and the buy side on that side. I guess what we've continue to see is also some of the liquidity providers, exchanges, some of the vendors also looking for more access to market data, whether that's via the cloud or whether that's kind of some unique content, etc. But again, it's really seen continued, people wanting to help them. There's been so many changes prior to this pandemic. We've seen quite a few of the market data vendors obviously being swallowed up almost by some of these exchanges, and we've seen some of the market data vendors being acquired, and some of the execution vendors being, with some of the large boys are being kind of merging together. So we've seen a real shift in that. So again, what we've been able to do is carry on that high level of kind of delivery that we talked about earlier with market data and EDCs. We've been able to carry that on. But again, we've got the independence, we've got the mobility, the nimbleness, and we've seen that. So again, we kind of really feel that we can help, again, market data and execution on the clients, wherever they may be in the world, wherever the asset class. So tongue in cheek, anyone can call us on the market data, but again, it hasn't stopped the inbound requests. I know Ollie, with the marketing team, we've done a lot of work around that. We're seeing a lot of inbound requests and information. Some of it, again, is just informational, but again, we're seeing a lot of people wanting to talk to independent vendors like ourselves, whether that's on the market data execution.
Okay, so look, a theme of all these conversations we've been having is looking at the opportunities and taking the positives from the negative. If I want to ask both of you to sort of sum up here a little bit about your sort of journeys, and if we're focusing here about what people can take as a sort of opportunity, where are the opportunities and where are some of the positives? And can both of you give me your sort of views on what this, how we emerge better from this?
So I think the positivity is almost business as usual, isn't it? It's like we said earlier, it's being able to carry on work, and it's being able to communicate, it's being able to deliver a high level of service, or again, helping people kind of in this time of change. Again, our focus is very much around market data and execution. That then gives the chance for other organisations to focus on what they need to focus on. So again, from an optimistic, positive point of view, we've definitely been able to carry on doing that, if not, dare I say, improve it on that side. And then certainly from a personal point of view, again, productivity, I guess, was always a worry for staff, but I guess for me, the positive is that productivity hasn't declined. If anything, it's slightly increased. Dare I say, I have no proof of that, but it just feels like people are more engaged and more, again, they're available and talking, etc. So again, the positives, certainly from delivering to clients, and then certainly from a personal point of view, I think most people are quite comfortable with where we are at the moment. So that would be my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think for me, the positivity is, the positive piece is that, we were able to, we plan for these things, we test for these things, we have BCP plans in place, but there's no real test as the real thing. And, it worked, it went well, we continue to operate, we continue to deliver our services to our clients. And I was very pleased with how our teams did that. And I think, to Rob's point, I think, again, if you'd asked me 3 months ago, my biggest concern would probably be, what that means for productivity then in a longer term situation. And we continue. And I think with, based on, culture, teams, checkpoints, etc., we've I think we've all been very happy with the level of productivity we've seen and how everyone stepped up. So, the fact that it did continue to be as boring as BAU, I think, for us is a very positive thing, and something we're very proud of in terms of our staff and our teams. I think an opportunity, without sounding like I'm repeating myself, I think it goes back to that piece around the managed services and the cloud and everything else. I think these types of things really end up forcing firms to look at where they do differentiate and where they have where their pain points are, and that's really where we can help, right? We help take out some of those costs, some of those operational inefficiencies, some of those challenges, whether it be throughput or management, etc., and really just let firms focus on the bits that they deem to be their differentiators. And I think as you go through something like this, then you're going to start to see those types of conversations emerge more so, and again see that perhaps accelerated. And then equally, I think as I say, another positive, another trend is that I think there will be more of this. There probably will be more virtual face-to-faces than there used to be, whether that be within the same region, whether that be with clients, whether that be with other regions. And I think there's a long-term shift here that to see a client face to face, you don't have to necessarily go to their office. You can just jump on a call and turn on your video and have a nice chat or a productive conversation. I think there'll be a cultural shift there that will last I hope anyway, for a long time.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting, that, won't it? It's sorry to cut off. I'm very interested as to whether this is something which comes through, because look, you know, just the traveling to someone else's office is a time drain. We've all met independently, haven't we, in New York together at various different stages, and where there's more or less international travel. I'm very, very interested to see whether we do slowly start to lurch back into the BAU of how it was done beforehand, or whether we are going to take the lessons of all this from it. Sorry, Rob, I cut across. You were about to jump in as well.
No, it's a slight tangent. So, but I think to your point, I don't think we will lurch back into the levels that we saw of travelling and commuting, because I just don't think. I think firms, including ourselves, and I'm sure you're the same with you, you just start to see it as an expense. You know, it's not cheap to letting people travel. And again, it was very important, wasn't it, the face-to-face communication and on that side. And what we're realising now, actually, we can communicate like this. We don't necessarily have to face it. Again, so hopefully it'll be a happy medium. Hopefully it will, but I don't think we'll get to the levels that we were, because it was, again, like you say, it's very time-consuming and very costly. And those two things are becoming more and more scrutinised at the moment. So the one thing I was going to say, though, is how many people have you spoken to who have said, you know, it's kind of nice also sitting down having dinner with the family, you know, on the evening. Yeah. It's unbelievable how many, whether it's family or friends, you know, family or colleagues, it's been a real kind of nice to hear that people kind of generally have a beam on their face when they say, you know, it's actually nice to spend some time with their partners or kind of, again, or their family, having dinner with each other, having that time where, you know, people won't be getting home to 8:30 on that side. So I think people are happier, and that balance is a bit better. And again, I think that will. I think
that's a very good point. I mean, there's some friends that I've, you know, probably seen on video more times in the last 3 months than I've seen or spoken to in person in the last couple of years. And it's, you know, I think it's forced us to make the effort a little bit more to do it. Yeah. It's made it more normal to do it as well. And yeah, to your point, Rob, I think, you know, it maybe creates a nicer balance as well. So I think that is important. Hopefully
we'll still all be able to have dinner at Tony's on Times Square again in the future anyway. No, look, I absolutely agree. It's there's so much stuff to take out of this, and I think, you know, to actually, I think, you know, the common feedback I get is, before this you thought, right, okay, I couldn't do stuff at home, I'm not a work from homer. But actually now, when you're doing it and you recognise there's that productivity game, that flexibility and versatility moving forward, I think can have a real impact and a real benefit to, you know, to the lives of everyone who's involved in it. At the same sort of stage, you know, that camaraderie of getting people together is something which I think is sacrosanct and important to you know, to keep at the same sort of stage of being able to get people physically together and enjoy some of that sort of the benefits of that too. But long may it continue. Change is happening, and it's exciting stuff, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks both of you so much. If anyone's there and watching and they want to get in touch with Vela, what's the best way of them doing that?
Go on the website, or give me a shout via LinkedIn, or Ollie via LinkedIn. So very easy. Just give us a shout.
Perfect. Well, please do follow up on that, guys. An utter pleasure as always. Thanks so much for sharing the story and your insight into everything that's been going on. I'm glad everything's going so well for you at the moment. Long may it continue, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Toby. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Great stuff, guys. See you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.